Hey guys, today we are going to be doing 6/8 trigonometric inverses and their graphs. So the first thing you should have done already is watch the video on inverse functions and their graphs. Okay, so a little bit of just information for your notes. The first thing is we're going to talk we'll start right here with our sine graphs. So sine and arcsine or inverse sine. Remember, they are inverses of each other, so their domains and their ranges are just going to flip. So sine is, the domain for that would be negative pi over 2 is less than x is less than pi over 2. And the range would be negative 1 to 1. And the inverse of it, its x value would be from negative 1 to 1 and negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. Okay? The next one we are going to talk about is cosine. So these ones right here. So for cosine, our domain we're talking about is from 0 to pi, and our range is going to be from negative 1 to positive 1. And then for the inverse, we're going to be talking about from our x's from negative 1 to positive 1, and our y's are going to be from 0 to pi. So pretty much we're taking for the sine and cosine, for their inverses, we're taking the sine and the cosine and we are flipping them vertically, pretty much twisting those 90 degrees. All right, and then the last one would be tangent. So same thing on the tangents and inverse tangents. We have negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. Our range would be all real numbers because we have kind of those S-looking things that go up and down. And then we would flip their inverses. So for the inverse tan, the x's would be all real numbers. The y would be negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. All of these things you should have seen in that video in those graphs. All right? Okay, so example number 1. Write the equation for the inverse of y equals arctan of 2x. Okay. Then graph the function and its inverse. So we are going to start with y equals, and I'm going to write it as tan to the negative 1 of 2x. So pretty much what we're going to do is we are going to exchange our x and our y. That's how we find an inverse, and then we're going to solve for our y. So I'm going to flip my x and my y. So right here we are going to exchange x and y. And now we're going to go ahead and solve for y. So the way to do an inverse tan is we're going to take the tan of both sides. So now we'll have tan of x equals 2y, divide by 2, and our y is going to equal 1/2 tan of x. Okay, so it tells us to graph the function and its inverse. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually graph them on 2 separate graphs over here. So here's my first graph. I can do better than that. Okay, and then I'll do my second one over here. All right, not erasing that this time. Okay, so first one I'm going to do is y equals 1/2 tan of x. So with our tangents, okay, remember that tangent for our domain is going to go from negative, is going to go from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2, but in this instant we are only going up to 1/2. So these are going to be pi over 4s. We are going up to 1/2. And our s will look something like this. Okay, so that is 1/2 tan of x. If we are going to solve then for the arctan of it, what we are going to do is we are pretty much going to take this graph and flip it on its side. So we are going to go negative 1/2 to 1/2, and we are going to do pi over 4 to negative pi over 4. Okay, so our positive 1/2, whoops, this should be negative. Our positive 1/2 went up to pi over 4. Our negative 1/2 went down, and our s looks something like that. Okay, so there's my graphs of those. All right, find each value. My note, which should be on here, which I will add, I'm going to add right here. Okay, use your unit circle for these. Okay, so on this first one, we have that our angle, remember the inverse sine helps us to find an angle. So we have that our angle equals arc sine of negative square root of 2 over 2. Okay, we could change that into a sine if we wanted to. So this is pretty much asking us what angle equals negative square root of 2 over 2. Remember our domain and our range from above. So it's only going to give us one answer, and that answer is going to be negative pi over 4. Where did I get that? From my unit circle. Okay, let's go on to the next one. I got the, okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look in my unit circle at cosine of pi over 2. So you're going to go to pi over 2 and find the cosine, and the cosine at that location is going to be 0. So I'm going to have my angle equals the inverse sine of 0. Okay, so at what angle is sine 0? And sine is 0 at 0. So that's our answer. Okay, let's go on to page 2. Okay, so same thing. Find each value, use unit circle, pay attention to our domains. So first one, we have the sine of the inverse tangent of 1 minus the inverse sine of 1. So you're going to look at your unit circle, and you're going to see where is my tangent, at what radian is my tangent equal to 1. Okay, that's going to be where your sine and cosine are exactly the same. Remember, for tangent, Okay, so remember for tangent, we're looking from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. So the only possible one where it could be that would be at pi over 4. Okay. So then look for where is the inverse of sine equal to 1. You'll see it's at pi over 2. So pi over 4 minus pi over 2 is going to be a negative pi over 4. Now look on your thing. Where is the sign? A negative pi. What's the sign of negative pi over 4? And that will be negative square root of 2 over 2. Okay, because you'll be looking inside of our domain. We have to look inside of that. So we're going to go from negative pi over 2 to positive pi over 2. Okay, so that's the only place it could exist is there in quadrant 4. All right, next one. Let's take a look at that. The first thing we need to do inside this problem is we need to figure out when the cosine of negative 1 is equal to square root of 2. We got to find out what angle that is. So I'm going to do my cosine to undo it. So where is cosine equal to square root of 2 over 2? Whoopsie doodle, I missed a negative. So negative square root of 2 over 2. Remember your domain that we need. So that's going to be, our angle is going to be 3 pi over 4. So we're going to put that in right there. So I will have cosine of 3 pi over 4 minus pi over 2. So that will be cosine of pi over 4. Where's the cosine? What is the cosine at pi over 4? It is the square root of 2. And that's your answer. So we've done these. You just did these with degrees. Now you're going to do them in radians, but on these ones, use your unit circle. Okay, last one. Determine if tan of the inverse tan of tan of x equals x. Is this true or false for all values of x? If it's false, we need to find a counterexample. If in order to do that, we need to try several values of x to see if we can find a counterexample. The nice thing is we kind of have an idea of what the domain was given to us for this. So we can look at a lot of values of x. So what we're going to do is I'm going to make a chart of different values. To plug these in so we can figure out if this first thing, so we want to pretty much figure out, is this equal to this? Okay. If we can find a reason when it's no, then we know that this is false. All right, we just have to have one counterexample. So I'm going to try, let's start with 0. So if I put the tan of 0, so look at your chart, what is the tan of 0? It's going to be 0. Okay, so what is the tan of 0? 0. What is the inverse tan of 0? 0. So we're good there. Okay, the next thing we're going to try is pi over 4. Why? It's just a next one I'm going to try out. Okay, so pi over 4. If I plug pi over 4 into my tangent, I'm going to get that my tangent is 1 there. Okay, and then if I plug in a 1 to this, so the tangent of pi over 4 is 1, and the inverse tangent of 1 is still pi over 4. That works. All right, let's try out pi. So if we plug in pi, I have that the tangent at pi is 0. Okay. So the tangent of pi is 0. The inverse tangent of 0 is 0. So do those two things equal each other, the first column and the last? They do not. They do not equal. So that right there proves that this statement above is false. Okay? Plug in a couple examples to see if you can find one that doesn't work. I would suggest using your domain from the first page to see if that helps you find a counterexample. All right, your homework is going to be page 410, 15 to 37 odd, and 45. If you have any questions, we can talk about it next class. Have a wonderful day.